In today's digital age, live streaming has become a bridge connecting people to one another. From online sales and artistic performances to intimate conversations about life, everything can be shared through a small screen. However, this seemingly familiar virtual world harbors dark secrets that no one could predict. Mogami Ai, 22 years old, embodied Japan's younger generation in the social media era. She wasn't just a popular streamer, but also a positive inspiration for thousands of followers. But on one fateful morning, the screen that had been filled with laughter suddenly turned into a nightmare, leaving terror for both her and those who loved her. Everything began on what seemed like an ordinary morning. The clock had just struck 9 a.m. on March 11, 2025, when Mogami Ai turned on her phone and prepared for her live stream. That day, hoping to bring something fresh to her audience, Ai decided to attempt the Yamanote walking challenge, a trend quite popular among Japan's streaming community. With bright laughter and overflowing energy, Mogami began her journey from Takadanobaba Station, one of the busiest stations on the Yamanote line. Her phone's camera captured every step as she walked, while naturally chatting with thousands of eyes watching through their screens. After about 10 minutes of walking, Mogami turned into a quiet small street about 1,000 feet from the station. This was a residential area in Shinjuku district. That morning, under clear blue skies and cool air, the empty streets created a rare peaceful atmosphere in the heart of the bustling city. Everything was proceeding normally like any other day. Ai was still laughing and talking, interacting with viewer comments, and no one, not even herself, could suspect that in just a few minutes a horrifying scene would strike suddenly and violently, turning an ordinary live stream into a haunting tragedy. While cheerfully chatting with her audience, Mogami's clear voice suddenly shattered in a desperate scream. "Help me!" In the next moment, a dark figure appeared from outside the camera's view. A man rushed straight toward Mogami with 43 violent strikes. This was no longer a normal entertainment broadcast. This was a murder being live-streamed, unedited, unscripted, 100% real tragedy happening right now. The chat box beside the screen immediately descended into total chaos. The cheerful, innocent comments from moments before now turned into cries of shock and horror. Viewership skyrocketed terrifyingly from 4,000 to 6,000, then 8,000 in just minutes. Every eye was glued to the screen, but no one wanted to believe what they were witnessing. Mogami's phone fell to the street, but the camera continued recording at a tilted angle. Through the cracked lens, the attacker's face appeared clearly, a middle-aged face with frighteningly empty eyes. He slowly stood upright, looking straight into the camera lens as if staring through the screen into each viewer's eyes. His hand still gripped the blood-stained weapon. Then with a calm tone, as if he had just completed routine work, he said, "I killed her." Mogami now lay silent, while the live stream continued broadcasting. In the panic, some viewers managed to screenshot and record the horrifying broadcast. The chat window became a chaotic stream of cries for help. "Call the police! Zrenia! Это реально?" Logically, "Oh God, can anyone help her?" Within just 10 minutes, police sirens echoed through the quiet space of the small neighborhood. When authorities arrived, they witnessed a crowd of local residents gathered around the scene. Everyone stood in shock, stunned by the unbelievable scene that had just unfolded before their eyes. A police officer approached the man still standing calmly beside the victim's body with a terrifying composure. "Did you do this?" the officer asked in a serious investigative tone. Showing no fear or remorse, he slowly raised both hands and replied, "Yes, I did it." He was immediately restrained and handcuffed on the spot. The chaotic sounds from the scene were all still being clearly recorded and broadcast live through the phone lying on the street. Thousands of eyes from everywhere were intently following every development through their screens, completely powerless to intervene or prevent anything. This was the first time in Japan's live streaming history that such a serious crime was broadcast live so publicly and completely. Before this tragedy, Mogami Ai was simply a familiar name to those who regularly browse livestream channels. But after the shocking live broadcast that day, all of Japan suddenly began asking haunting questions. Who really was Mogami Ai? In reality, Mogami Ai was just a stage name she chose for online activities. Her real name was Sato Airi, a familiar face on the Pococha live streaming platform. She was beloved by many viewers for her youthful, cute image with the style of an innocent, pure country girl. Viewers often left positive comments about her sweet voice, baby face, and natural conversation style. However, behind the innocent appearance shown before the camera, Mogami Ai's real life carried much more complex and tangled shadows. Though only 22, she had already experienced being a single mother after giving birth at 18, information rarely mentioned in her daily live streams. After having her child, Mogami began her streaming career as a way to make a living and support her child. Her life constantly involved juggling multiple complex relationships and unstable circumstances while trying to maintain a bright, cheerful image whenever she live streamed. To be able to work night shifts, she often had to leave her child with acquaintances or colleagues at the bars where she worked. The inability to care for her child regularly, combined with completely losing contact with the child's father, made Mogami's life increasingly uncontrolled and chaotic. The situation worsened when the child was intervened upon by local authorities and placed in a children's counseling center. The reason given was that the child wasn't attending school regularly, lacked stable guardianship, and was neglected for long periods without proper care. Mogami's family situation was also far from easy. According to accounts from many acquaintances, her mother was described as a woman with a bad lifestyle who had abandoned her daughter and frequently appeared at bars with a loose attitude. More disgracefully, she even introduced herself as the mother of famous streamer Mogami Ai to get free drinks, entertainment, and personal profit from her daughter's fame. However, contrary to the chaos in her private life, Mogami showed herself to be an extremely hard-working and dedicated person in streaming. Through relentless effort, she gradually rose to achieve Platinum Plus rank, the highest and most prestigious level on the Pococha platform. This achievement not only brought fame, but also meant impressive income, estimated at about 9 million yen annually, approximately $60,000. This was a figure that many young people pursuing online broadcasting could only dream of achieving. For a girl only 22 years old, this was truly a proud achievement and evidence of her talent and diligence. But perhaps Mogami Ai never suspected that this very image, a young, cute streamer, a pitiful girl needing protection and help, would become the smoldering ember that ignited sick emotions and led to the beginning of a tragedy no one could foresee. After taking the suspect to the station, Tokyo police immediately began verifying his identity. His name was Takano Kenichi, born in 1982. He lived alone in a small apartment in Oyama City, with no criminal record. The ordinary appearance of a typical Japanese man. The initial investigation quickly turned toward understanding the relationship between Takano and Mogami through analyzing phone records, personal messages, and activity data from the Pococha live streaming platform. What they discovered was a story of obsession and sick infatuation. Step by step, the investigation team reconstructed the entire chain of interactions between Takano and Mogami. This relationship never simply stopped at the normal level between a fan and a favorite streamer. Takano began following Mogami's broadcasts in December 2021. At first, he seemed to be just an ordinary viewer among thousands of others. But over time, Takano became increasingly active and deeply involved in Mogami's world, frequently sending expensive gifts, transferring large support payments, leaving long and detailed comments, and actively seeking to contact her privately outside of live stream hours. From public interactions on the platform, they gradually began having private conversations through messages and phone calls, all confirmed by police through detailed message history and call records. The crucial turning point occurred in August 2022, when Takano visited Mogami's workplace in Yamagata Prefecture. After that fateful meeting, Takano's way of addressing her changed completely. He began calling her, "My dear Mogami," instead of the polite forms of address he had used before. The relationship continued to develop when they met again twice in September and once more in October. Clearly, the relationship between the two had become much closer, at least from Takano's perspective. For him, this was no longer simply admiration for a famous streamer. It had become deep personal emotion, great expectations about a romantic relationship, though no one could know for certain whether Mogami had ever truly reciprocated those feelings. The reality that police discovered showed that those feelings had perhaps never been genuine romantic feelings. Starting in September 2022, Mogami began frequently texting Takano, asking to borrow money with seemingly reasonable excuses like, "I lost my wallet at my part-time job. Can you lend me 40,000 yen?" About $270. Takano, with sincere feelings and absolute trust for the person he loved, never hesitated or doubted. He immediately transferred money to the account she provided, considering it a way to express his love and concern. By October, Mogami's messages became more urgent. "My sister is in debt. I have no living expenses left." And so it continued, in a regular monthly cycle, with pleas for help continuing to arrive and the amounts requested growing higher. From the initial 40,000 yen, Takano gradually drained his meager savings, then had to borrow from outside sources to meet her increasingly large demands. According to police calculations, in total he had transferred an enormous sum of 2.5 million yen to Mogami, approximately $16,800. Notably, Takano never considered this money as a loan that needed to be repaid. In his mind, everything came from sincere feelings and unconditional love. In his statement to police, he confessed, "I never thought of it as lending or anything like that. I simply wanted to help the person I loved." However, even one-sided love, no matter how earnest and sincere, has certain limits. Despite using all his personal assets and transferring over 2.5 million yen to Mogami over many months, Takano had never received back even 1 yen, not even a word of thanks, not a promise about repayment, or even just a small gesture showing appreciation. Increasingly, despite trying to maintain faith and feelings, Takano felt something wasn't right. An unease and doubt began creeping into his mind. From late 2022, Takano officially fell into a serious financial crisis. He no longer had any ability to continue supporting Mogami, but her pleas for help continued arriving with increasing frequency. These pleas made Takano, though financially exhausted, still unable to refuse. Once again, he softened and continued trying to transfer money to Mogami, even having to borrow at high interest rates from various sources. But what hurt and devastated him most wasn't just the enormous amount of money lost. According to an account from a mutual acquaintance of Takano, Mogami had used all the money he provided to live an extravagant lifestyle. She frequently visited high-end bars, especially boys' bars, places where women pay to have young, handsome men pour drinks, chat, and pamper them. At these places, Mogami had ordered expensive champagne bottles, flirted freely with male staff, and spent lavishly. Additionally, on her live streams, she frequently appeared with other male broadcasters, chatting intimately and constantly showing off her luxurious, sophisticated lifestyle on personal social media. Images of expensive food, designer clothes, and upper-class living were regularly posted. All of this completely devastated Takano mentally. He felt brutally deceived, ashamed for having trusted so blindly, and extremely angry upon realizing that in the eyes of the person he loved, he was simply a wallet to be withdrawn from mercilessly without any real feelings whatsoever. Finally, in December 2023, Takano decided to file a lawsuit against Mogami I in Utsunomiya District Court, demanding she fully repay the 2,514,800 yen he had transferred to her, along with 3% interest calculated from the first transfer date until final repayment. After reviewing evidence and testimony from both sides, the court ultimately ruled completely in Takano's favor. According to this ruling, Mogami was required to repay the entire amount received along with interest as requested by the plaintiff. However, Mogami continued to completely ignore the court's decision. Not only that, by February 2024, she had returned to regular broadcasting on the Pococha platform as if nothing had happened. Notably, her channel's viewership increased significantly compared to before, and her income increased accordingly. Mogami once again achieved Platinum Plus rank, the highest level in the system, with revenue estimated at millions of yen per month. But despite earning so much money, she still didn't repay even 1 yen to Takano. The man who had drained his savings and even borrowed at high interest rates to help her through difficulties was now completely ignored. Mogami continued appearing before the camera daily with a fresh appearance, radiant smile, living carefree as if no debt or legal obligations existed. As time passed, Mogami's silence in Takano's eyes was no longer simply indifference or being busy, but had become deliberate and complete rejection. He began closely monitoring her every activity through social media and live streams. He knew very well that Mogami's income was steadily increasing again, and also knew she completely had the financial ability to repay that money, but deliberately chose not to. Takano had tried many times to contact Mogami, but received only absolute silence in return. From early 2025, Takano began falling into a severe and increasingly serious psychological disorder. In his mind at this point, he wasn't just someone financially defrauded, but also a bitter failure in a one-sided love full of illusions and self-deception. He began posting increasingly frequent status updates on social media with desperate and pleading words. "Please return my money. I'm living in debt. If you could just repay even a small part, I could continue living." The climax occurred 2 weeks before the tragic incident. During a regular live stream, Mogami appeared with another male broadcaster, smiling and chatting cheerfully. While the broadcast was going enthusiastically, an account named Magi Love, which was the new nickname Takano had created after being blocked from previous accounts, left comments full of jealousy and once again reminded about the unpaid debt. Another viewer in the live stream room immediately recognized the real identity of Magi Love and began criticizing. Mogami didn't hesitate to react by immediately blocking the Magi Love account from her live stream room. In that moment, Takano understood he had been completely erased from her life. Time continued passing like this, with Takano falling into a state of hopeless despair. Until the afternoon of March 7th, 2025, Takano decided to make one final effort. He sent a message, this time not to Mogami, but to her new fiancé through social media. The tone of the message no longer contained reproach or anger, only final desperation and pleading. Please tell her to pay me back. I'm being constantly harassed by finance companies for debt. If I could just get that money back, I could continue living. Please help me." But that message also fell into the void like all the pleas he had sent over nearly a year. On March 10th, exactly 1 day before the horrific tragedy occurred, Mogami still appeared on her live stream as fresh as if nothing had happened. She talked while dancing cheerfully, occasionally joking with another male broadcaster. Meanwhile, Takano sat silently in his dark room, eyes glued to her every gesture, every smile through his phone screen. His throat tightened, emotions surging in his heart like a storm. She danced radiantly while he huddled in his cramped room, surrounded by piles of debt collection notices, by feelings of despair and abandonment, by the entire world. Early the next morning, March 11th, Takano left Oyama Station at 7:45 a.m. He carried with him all the promises, disappointments, and emotions accumulated over more than a year, leaving the small town for Tokyo with everything calculated and arranged in his head. This was no longer the journey of someone loving or someone begging. This was the journey of someone pushed to the final limit. That morning, Tokyo welcomed a peaceful morning like any other. Clear blue skies, cool air, bustling crowds going to work. No one could know that in just a few hours, a horrifying murder would occur in broad daylight and be witnessed directly by thousands of eyes watching through screens. At 9 a.m., Mogami Ai turned on her phone and began her live stream as usual. She stood at Takadanobaba Station in central Shinjuku, her characteristic radiant smile on her lips as she greeted viewers. That day, she decided to attempt the Yamanote Line walking challenge, moving while chatting, exploring Tokyo in the most intimate and authentic way. On the live broadcast, her cheerful voice rang out, "Today will be an interesting journey. Let's explore Tokyo on foot together." Thousands of viewers were ready to accompany her on this seemingly harmless adventure. At the same time, about 60 miles away, Kenichi Takano was already on his way from Oyama Station in Tochigi Prefecture toward Tokyo. In his backpack was a sharp object carefully prepared, in his jacket pocket a smartphone to follow the live stream. His face no longer showed any hesitation or despair like previous days. Throughout the journey from Oyama to Tokyo, Takano walked while opening his phone to follow Mogami's live stream. Every frame, every step, every word she said, he carefully compared the images in the video with the actual scenery on the street. When Mogami turned to the camera with a bright smile and said, "This is Takadanobaba Station. I'm walking toward Shinjuku," Takano suddenly stopped in the middle of the street. He looked up around, comparing with what he was seeing on screen. The scenery matched completely. He knew she was very close to him. Mogami continued walking with a relaxed mood, holding her phone while live streaming and laughing with thousands of viewers watching. After leaving Takadanobaba Station, she walked about 1,000 feet along a quiet small street in Shinjuku district. On the live stream, she excitedly chatted with viewers about her journey plans, completely unaware that just dozens of feet away, Takano was silently following behind with dark intentions. From a distance, Takano recognized her immediately. From a safe position, he began turning on his phone camera to record personally. Takano's deep, cold voice rang out in the self-recorded clip. "This is the place. If you go down a little more, you'll reach that spot." And then, with final determination, he began moving toward her. The attack happened with swift brutality. In less than a minute, Mogami was attacked with a total of 43 strikes. The sounds of final resistance gradually weakened, then stopped completely in absolute silence. The phone fell to the street, but the camera continued operating and recording. In the tilted frame, Kenichi Takano's face appeared clearly. Empty eyes, cold expression as if he had just completed a task. Immediately after the horrific incident, all of Japan felt shaken by an earthquake. News spread at light speed through social media. Newspapers simultaneously ran urgent reports, and online forums exploded with millions of comments, shares, and analysis videos from users everywhere. The name Mogami Eye suddenly appeared densely across all newspapers, television news, and forums both domestically and internationally. Not only in Japan, this story spread worldwide like a dark viral phenomenon. Japanese and international public opinion quickly divided into many opposing streams with completely different views about the incident. This division not only reflected different perspectives on crime, but also revealed deep disagreements about social morality in the social media age. In the eyes of the majority of the public, Takano was seen as a delusional person with serious mental disorders, unable to control his emotions and behavior. They believed this sick psychological condition was the main cause leading to the tragedy. Many people strongly defended Mogami, asserting she was completely innocent in the entire affair. To them, Mogami was simply a young woman trying to make a living through online broadcasting work. However, not everyone completely saw Mogami as an entirely innocent victim. A significant portion of public opinion began speaking from another perspective, believing that Mogami's behavior and attitude in her relationship with Takano had somewhat contributed to this tragedy. Importantly, they never justified or excused the brutal murder, but still raised serious questions about moral responsibility in the relationship between Mogami and Takano. People with this viewpoint argued, she accepted money for months, spent lavishly, then disappeared in silence when he was no longer useful. If she never had real feelings, why accept the money, send emotionally charged pleas for help, then turn around and block him as if they'd never known each other? He was completely wrong to use violence, but you can't say she was entirely innocent. Many recalled that Takano had pleaded and begged in desperation for nearly a year, just hoping to receive a response. They pointed out that Mogami not only completely ignored him, but also publicly blocked him on her live stream before thousands of people. "No one has the right to kill, that's certain," a comment reflecting this viewpoint wrote, "but no one should toy with others' emotions then discard them like trash either." This isn't simply a murder case over one-sided love, but the serious psychological collapse of trust and sincerity being exploited to the extreme. For those holding this view, Mogami's tragic death wasn't just the painful end of a young streamer, but also the harsh consequence of a distorted and unbalanced relationship, where one person had given too much emotionally and materially, while the other didn't consider the consequences of accepting without intending to reciprocate appropriately. Amid the storm of controversy, Mogami's family remained completely silent, neither confirming nor refuting, not participating in any stream of public opinion. However, some people close to Mogami began speaking out. They didn't try to explain or defend, but only made one clear request. Stop prying into the past. Let her rest in peace. No one has the right to question the private life of a woman who has passed. What are your thoughts on today's case? Please share in the comments below. Thank you for following and see you in upcoming videos.